I need to turn the table because I should have done that this time, like at an angle. Hey guys, welcome to episode 50 of the 1023 Soul Shop Talk podcast. It's special because it's 50. And we have Robert. So today we're going to, the full show will be posted in audio form. And then for YouTube, I'm going to split this up into 3 segments. So we'll do like 3 15 or so minute episodes because YouTube really, really hates when I post long things there and nobody watches them. So hopefully this works good. So the first thing, I just had questions for you on this one. I want to talk about what are the expectations that people might have that are like maybe not accurate to like what a shop can provide service wise, or like is there like questions that you get asked frequently that like maybe aren't the right questions? I guess the dynamic of when you contact the shop, what should the expectation be for like their service and like time and like what you can expect from that?
So I guess start off, one of the questions, probably the number one question we get is, a customer calls, says, "Hey, what's wrong with my truck? It's making this noise."
Right.
And we're expected to know over the phone what's wrong with their truck. Yeah. Which we can't do. Every truck is typically set up different. It could be anything. So we first have to get the customer in. We have to schedule them for some time to diagnose their vehicle. Yeah. And sometimes that customer feels like they're paying for a diagnosis. They're not necessarily paying for our time. Mm-hmm.
Like paying for the diagnosis being that whatever you're paying for, like it's a product.
Right. It's an item that they're going to receive. Right. For this price. And unfortunately, that's not always the case. Yeah. A lot of the times it is. A lot of the times we can figure something out. And a lot of the times you have an idea what's wrong with the truck just by looking at the work order and seeing what the concern is. But sure, that's not always the case. Sometimes it takes quite a bit of testing to determine what the problem is and then identify, what caused that to happen.
Well, and I think probably some of the confusion with that would be like when you quote a time, like you have a minimum time, right? You say like, well, to like the starting price or the starting thing is we're going to charge you for an hour of labor for diagnostics, but that isn't a guarantee. Like we'll find an answer in an hour. Like it may be more than that. You find that like maybe a lot of people don't understand that completely.
Yeah. And I've been thinking a lot lately about changing the term that we use to testing. We're going to test your vehicle to see what faults we can find. Yeah. Instead of, you're paying us for a diagnosis. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess it is kind of confusing. Because there's been a couple times I know like where people have been disappointed after paying for diagnostics, or like if a problem doesn't present itself when we have a truck, it's like, well, how much time do you want to pay for us to keep trying to recreate something that happened? And that can get pretty expensive, especially when like you still have to pay for us to do it, even if we don't find the answer. Yeah. And there's been issues with that in the past.
Unfortunately. Yeah. And that's another thing too. You get an intermittent electrical concern with the vehicle. Mm-hmm. It has to be present for us to diagnose it. Yeah. So we get the truck in, you're driving this truck down the road, and once, maybe 1 or 2 times a month, it does something that you're concerned about. That's going to be a very difficult, concern for us to. Yeah.
Diagnose. So what does that look like if somebody has a problem like that, and like you take the truck in and you charge a couple hours to look at it? It's not like the problem isn't present. I know like here and probably a lot of shops, you are scheduled pretty far out. Like we're scheduled a month or whatever out. Like if the problem presents itself again, like you just say, bring it back when it has an issue, or just like reschedule a time when it has an issue?
Typically we will work with the customer and, try to be as reasonable as we can to get them in and get it figured out. That being said, it really depends on what the concern is. Yeah. If it's something that even when present is going to take a lot of time to, dig in and figure out what's going on, then it just creates a really difficult concern. So,
yeah. And I can imagine too, it's probably, like, I don't know. I know like what I've learned over time is having like very strict policies about like what we will and won't provide time or service wise, at least for like our online support and everything. And then being willing to make exceptions to that, it's much easier to have a policy that's strict and then to make an exception than it is to not have a policy and then just create confusion with everybody.
Yeah.
And sure. I think that's something that you learn the longer you're in business, as long as like you're in the morally right place to care. There's certainly a lot to learn about that.
Yeah. So
I guess that leads into the next question I have for you. And like what does a shop, like how does a shop operate? Like if you've brought a truck in, let's say for like maintenance instead of repair, what actually goes on behind the scenes, like scheduling, getting products, like scheduling the right tech for the job, like choosing the right person for the job. Like what does all of that look like behind the scenes?
It gets challenging, especially where we're at, because we work on diesels, and a lot of the times diesels are very labor intensive to perform repairs on.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times, like, hey, we got a truck in for check engine light. This could be a, half-hour repair.
Yeah.
Or this could be a 30-hour repair.
Yeah.
Not sure yet. So it gets very hard to schedule those repairs. Typically we'll get a truck on the schedule. When that day comes, the truck comes into the shop. We kind of work it in. Every day we don't start with empty bays, so we can't just bring it in first thing. And a lot of the times the customer isn't there.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the day, but getting on the schedule gets you that position in line. And we typically we will get that truck in and at least get an answer to the customer the same day. Your check engine light is caused by, a def tank heater or whatever. We'll at least get that information back to the customer. We'll perform an inspection on the vehicle.
What does a inspection look like? Is that something like somebody would need to request and pay for, or what is that?
No, every truck we get in the shop, we do an inspection on. Basically, we make sure that the little things don't turn into big things. We try to find, a little leak, or, your brake pads are low, or you got a wheel bearing that's starting to make some noise. Try to find those things before they become an issue. And
you're just doing that to make as much money as possible, right?
No, I mean, I think it ends up saving the customer a lot of money in the end. Yeah. It ensures that they have a reliable, safe vehicle to drive.
Yeah.
And ensures that, I share the road. My family shares the road with these guys.
Yep.
And we all want to, get home safely. So.
Well, and like you said, the reason for that, if there's a problem, I'm just giving an example, and I might be wrong here. Like your brake pads are low. Well, potentially, if your brake pads are low and you don't notice it, and you end up wearing through them, and then you ruin your rotors and your brake, and you need brake pads, and like that's going to end up costing more than just replacing your brake pads. Like just a simple example of like it's not just like shops aren't just giving you more things that are wrong with your vehicle.
Absolutely, and it is something that could leave you stranded. You end up pushing the caliper piston out. You're not gonna be able to safely stop, especially if you're towing a trailer. And the safest way to get it to the shop would be to tow it. So that would be a real inconvenience, instead of just hey man, you got your truck in for an oil change. We notice these things too.
Yeah,
might be a good time to take care of them.
Yeah. So let's say it's just maintenance, and it's just an oil change. Do you guys schedule, like, I guess we don't do a lot of just like general maintenance, do we? I mean, is it?
We do have some customers that would prefer a specialized diesel shop do the maintenance on their vehicles. But for the most part, we don't advertise for basic maintenance. It's not something that we are really known for. We're known for a lot of the hard to perform tasks, like diagnosing drivability concerns and check engine lights and stuff like that on diesels. So.
Well, and it's a very different business. Like general maintenance is like, I know we've talked about like we would like to like operate like almost separately from the shop, like maintenance. It's like almost like it's two different things. You have to have like two different departments almost, because it's completely different, especially when it comes to scheduling.
Yeah. Scheduling, especially with a shop that performs the easier stuff, the basic maintenance stuff, brake pads, front end work, oil changes, stuff like that. The car count has to be high in order to maintain profitability. And right now our car count is extremely low, because we're, averaging 15, 20 hours labor on each ticket.
Yeah.
It would be a completely different process compared to what we have now in place to manage that type of shop. So
is that something that you think like we ever would do like in this building, or you think if you wanted to get into more maintenance stuff, if ever, would it be just like totally separate, like try to split it off into two different?
It would be nice to have another building that's set up more for the flow of vehicles in and out.
Yeah.
But it could be done in the shop.
So I know this is one thing that I've had an issue with. I had some body damage to my Equinox, and the shop that the car's at, I had originally taken it in, and then like it was scheduled, got all the parts delivered, and it was going to be like way too long. So I just took it back, brought it back again like 2 weeks ago, and like what I get told frequently is it's not ready yet. We're waiting for like available techs to fix it. So I guess from the scheduling side, and every shop is probably going to be different, and auto body is a little bit different, but like scheduling wise, like for me, it's a little bit easy to be frustrated. It's like, well, I have to pay for a rental car. I would like to bring my vehicle to you when you actually have time to fix it. I don't care when that is. You know what I mean? I guess I imagine body work somewhat is the same as like longer repair work that you guys do when it comes to scheduling. Do you see issues like that in the shop where it's like, do you try to predict to where like you get a vehicle within like a day that you can do 30 hours of repair on it? Or do you try to say like, well, you need it like a week at a time, we'll fit it in as soon as we can? Like, what does that look like?
So we schedule basically 2 vehicles a day. And that seems to be working pretty good. When we get the truck in, like I said, we do an inspection. We typically find some concerns that need to be repaired, and that keeps us busy. Mm-hmm. If there is something like, like a head gasket failure, or we see signs of a head gasket failure, like, your cooling system is starting to get pressurized.
Yeah.
When it shouldn't be. You're starting to have a little bit of coolant flowing out of the degas bottle. We need to, schedule this repair. At that point, if we get the customer to, sign off on it, we'll get the parts coming, and they can continue to drive their vehicle until we can get the parts here and schedule them in for the repair. So that really shortens the amount of time that they are without their vehicle.
Yeah.
And we try to do that as much as possible. For one, we really don't have a ton of room to be parking, vehicles outside that are not currently being repaired. And two, just like you said, it's a real inconvenience that, they're without their trucks.
Yeah, I guess I don't really think too much hadn't thought a lot about the inconvenience of like, it's kind of a pain to like get a ride and like get a vehicle to a shop, and then what are you going to drive when your vehicle's there, and how are you going to get it back when it's time? Like that is, it's not very convenient.
Definitely.
So we need a fleet of Teslas.
There's nothing convenient about your vehicle braking.
Yeah, that's very true. So the inspections are important.
Yes, they are.